When, why, what, wander with words till we hit wonder, wonderful, wonder chosen, wonder bread, no thanks, I prefer my sugar cakes honest, wanderlust, not exactly the same when you swap the O for an A, still a great song by Baroness before they went all Theory of a Nickel Creed, Wonder Stevie, most will say Intervisions, but I'm all about songs in the key of life, Mario Wonder, Wonderland, delicious, Cadbury Creamy, wonder why the Wonderswan was never officially released in the American West. Enough of this wonder word purge. This is Rockman and Forte, Challenger from the Future, a 1999 Japanese exclusive developed by Bandai, the creators of the Wonderswan itself, along with Layup. For those assuming this is another port of the Super Famicom game, you'd be wrong. Challenger from the Future borrows a few elements from that 16-bit title, but narratively, visually, and conceptually, this is its own thing. Wonderfully weird and wild.
Weird, wild.
Get lost, Carvey. Impressions will never be funny. Stick to interrupting your own guests on that crapcast with your SNL sidekick, Dirt Kid, unfunny buddy. No, Carvey. Bad Carvey.
Go, bye-bye!
Rarely do I feel the need to hunt down localized versions of regional action platformer games. Typically, the getting around is pretty self-explanatory, but Challenger from the Future leans relatively hard into its story, and some of the menus can be tough to parse, so I spent the time digging around for a fan-crafted translation patch. Easier said than done, what with all of the ROM site shutdowns and all. Clearly, I found one, but oh, what a hassle. Still, I'm glad I did it, because this thing leans heavily into its story, and it was nice being able to read the item descriptions in the shop. This is a wholly original game in the long-running series, one that's probably not canon for those of you who care about that arbitrary nonsense. In it, a blue bomber doppelganger has been spotted doing some nasty destructive business. Rock investigates, and Wily sends Forte out to confirm the strange behavior. The two set aside their differences, and boom, we're in it. I'll hand it to these developers, they managed to subvert my expectations narratively. After a handful of robot masters have been defeated, it becomes a straight shot to the final antagonist through a few extra stages. Dialogue occurs after each of these late game bosses have been eliminated, with a few minor differences depending on the character path chosen. Similar to its Super Famicom counterpart, it's possible to choose between the two robots at the beginning. Armed with his chargeable Mega Buster as well as his tougher candy blue coating, Rock can both deal and absorb more damage. Forte is a sticky fella, a terrifyingly angry sort of sticky fella. Firing his rapid pew pellets locks him in place, but he can double jump, making platforming all around more forgiving. Both characters can get out of harm's way in a hurry by holding down in conjunction with the jump button. Forte dashes, but he doesn't get as low as Rock's slide, so certain spike traps simply can't be avoided. As a trade-off, the feather-helmeted ball of 90s rage can reach higher platforms and double leap his way to goodies in trickier spots. Pickups are often peppered throughout the stages, gear that can only be gathered by one or the other. Surprisingly, fortunately, it's possible to swap control inputs in the menu. I say surprisingly because this was a much-needed feature that was completely absent in the 16-bit Nintendo title. There, Forte's dash was automatically assigned to A. Ask anyone who has played the X series and they'll tell you how wretchedly wrong this is, how it was available in those first 3 SNES titles and not here. I have no idea, but this isn't the game we're talking about. More controller options are always better. I didn't feel the need to change them in this Wonderswan exclusive, but kudos Bandai, thumbs up for giving us the freedom. It's also nice that a manual save system is present. Being able to swap through a handful of files is extremely convenient as there are plenty of purchasable items across 2 different characters. All of the information is clearly illustrated in these menus, making it super easy to load up a game. This may seem like an overly obvious thing to address, but this series has had some of the clunkiest user interfaces I've experienced from a big-wig development studio. Everything here is easy to parse. Rummaging through shops has rarely felt so swift and manageable in this series. Yes, there's still a lot of scrolling text chit-chat, but I never once clicked on something unintentionally while skipping through it impatiently. If there's one thing I can say about this entire package, is that it's clean, concise, and well optimized in every way. Controlling the characters is tight, responsive, and snappy. I've never played this on the actual device, but I imagine that the crispness of the character sprites and smoothness of the animations translates well to the small screen. Personally, I'm not entirely sold on the new playable character designs or how some of the robot masters and enemies have a certain, let's just say, cheap knockoff Higai Karate Turtles thing going on, but credit where it's due. Everything is well detailed and visually tidy. I mean, would you just look at the dong on this ding-a-ling? Stove Man? Looks like one of those better the Chaos Dark Souls creeps, spliced with those fire flow flingers from Mega Man 2's Quick Man stage, darting around the room, wiggle wobbling those licorice whip limbs. How about a pair of boxy 1950s sci-fi style robot dweebs? Dance for daddy, you weirdos. A couple look like they belong among the classic characters. Aircon Man has an Airman thing going on, or maybe he's closer to Mega Man 6's Wind Man and Compass Man. Yeah, Compass Man. Well, he has a few things in common with Sword Man. Oh, oops.
I'm
Swordsman. What's important is that they're a blast to fight. That is, until their patterns have been mastered. In other official franchise entries, the better big bads tend to switch up their attack style, making them entertaining to come up against each time. Here in Challenger from the Future, they all stick to a strict sequence of moves, resulting in some relatively rote battles. Yeah, it's fun to suss out their actions, but once they are learned, the difficulty is completely gone. Fortunately, that tired old routine of having to face each boss twice has been eliminated here, thank Christ, but there's also no need to revisit the game itself, at least not to face these very rigid robot masters. Dealing with them feels more like an orchestrated dance than a sweaty, unpredictable battle. Perhaps hardware limitations got in the way, maybe the developers couldn't quite tap into that Capcom magic. Your guess is as good as mine. Acquiring their weapons is still a thing, but I rarely felt the need to use them as rock. Forte, on the other hand, is so weak with his basic blaster that it's almost necessary to experiment with the Robot Master drops. It's certainly doable without, but it'll take a month of Sundays to take any of them down with his weaker rapid-firing pellets and flimsier armor. There are a hefty amount of interesting mid-stage mini-bosses. Like everything in this game, some are easier to destroy with one playable character's set of skills than the other. This octopus, for instance, can be frustrating without Conro Man's drop while playing as the Blue Bomber. It's clever how these Mets ricochet rocks shots vertically to hit the giant undersea creature's body, but the Super Mario platforms often get in the way, making the entire battle feel like an act of attrition. This was the toughest part of the entire game for me until I eventually stumbled upon its weakness, which is fire of all things. In the water, fire. Not exactly intuitive, but I guess this is the only upgrade that shoots vertically, but yeah, still, the fire under the sea. See as these flames destroy it in no time. As Forte, this entire fight is a breeze with his stock weapon as he can double jump and shoot upwards. Ain't no thing. This checkpoint boss, on the other hand, pun intended, a bit of a hassle as the hardcore edgelord full-hawk wily warrior. Without a boss item armed, it's tough to do a substantial amount of damage. It drops in a matter of seconds with Rock's powered-up Mega Buster. Trade-offs like these make this game a thrill to play through with each character at least once.
Why must I fight you?
Bumblebee Exchange, Bumblebee Exchange, Bumblebee Exchange, Bumblebee Exchange, Bumblebee Exchange, Bumblebee Exchange. All of the earnable upgrades have distinct names depending on the character, similar to the X series titles where Zero is playable. They all have similar movesets thematically, but some operate a bit differently. The aforementioned Flame, for instance, has a different windup while playing as Forte, but the result is almost exactly the same. Both can stop the Hamburglar dead in his tracks as either Robo Man. Many of the items on sale at the store are shared between the two characters, but there are a few that can only be bought by one robot or the other. A pipe-smoking Dr. Lightright operates the rock shop, while Roll hosts Forte. Annoyingly, in one of the stupidest decisions ever made in one of these games, canine companions can only be used once after purchase. They ain't cheap either, so I hardly see the point investing in them. Rush Coil aids the Blue Bomber with a bounce. Treble fuses with Shoulder Chip McBadass to form the violentest of Voltrons, but again, what's with them only being a single-use item? It isn't like they're so overpowered that they ruin the entire game. Oh, and the exit parts work the same, as in you can only leave one stage before it vanishes from the inventory screen. Bogus, dude. Yeah, this isn't as long as some of the other classic series titles, but why even bother? As is the case with all of these, with bolt currency and a shop, my advice is to earn enough for the energy balancer so you don't need to fumble fuck through the menu every time you want to refill a weapon's juice, and be done with it. Trust me, you'll want it even more this time around, as your boss gear doesn't automatically replenish itself between stages. If you're having a tough time, there are a couple of buster and armor upgrades available to buy, but everything is fairly pricey. I actually had to continue playing after beating the game to grind a bit so I could show some of this stuff off. Ultimately, I still don't think it's worth the hassle. A nice addition, a neat distraction for those who enjoy that farm life, but hardly necessary, especially since enemies drop so many resources and extra lives are located everywhere, oftentimes behind a gate that can only be destroyed by Aircon Man's barrier wind, or Forte Cyclone as it were. Forte is Forte. Yes, this is a trick they pull numerous times throughout. Almost every stage has primo shit behind a barricade. Also, how many items can they tuck behind stalactite spikes? The getting around is all about timing a dash or slide under ceiling after ceiling of these. Come up with a new thing. Okay, it's fine, but also a pretty good way of exhibiting how bland, repetitive, and generally uninspired the majority of the regular levels are. I commended the crisp, clear character sprites earlier, but this comes at the detriment to the background details, or the lack thereof. Look, this is a monochromatic handheld game, I get it, but there are very few landmarks or visual distinctions between any of these stages. Thematically, we're running through the same stock standard elemental set pieces, but I wouldn't be able to tell you which Robot Master's environment I was in based off of these images alone. Again, we're definitely talking hardware limitations, but Nintendo's 8-bit gray brick had 5 Mega Man entries, and they at least came close to capturing that franchise feel. In one case, it met and arguably surpassed the quality of the half a dozen titles available on its colorful console Big Brother. I enjoyed my time with Challenger from the Future, but the getting around started to feel monotonous and bland after a while. There were moments where it felt like I was playing a dollar store Mega Man knockoff. This anti-gravity section just doesn't feel good. The slide or dash isn't properly configured, so it's just completely wrong. A shame, because this was one of my favorite gimmicks introduced in the 5th NES entry. I don't know, at least they tried. The mini-bosses and Robot Masters saved this thing from complete banality. Oh, and the underwater stage. Okay, so yeah, the thing with the Wonderswan is that it can be used horizontally as well as vertically. You know, similar to the Atari Lynx, cleverly, Rockman and Forte has a stage where the device and screen need to be tilted height-wise to account for the perpendicular platforming challenges. It's not simply a gimmick. This one level goes full hog with all of the ideas, almost as though the developers dumped every bit of ingenuity shared between them into this single area. There's a fairly cheap spike trap drop before the interestingly designed octopus sub-boss, then after the checkpoint, an upwards climb atop these controllable pufferfish fellas. It's all so engaging, the complete opposite of every horizontally structured stage in the game. It was here where I felt like I was playing through a proper Mega Man, not a strange bargain bin knockoff. Even the enemies here look like they belong in the official series, which is more than I can say for a few of the other designs. So we've seen everything when it comes to basic baddies in this franchise, but a boozy, fiery-faced flask that rotates like a Xevious monolith? How about some walking bells? Hammerhead sharks? Okay, I'll give them the hammerhead sharks, and hey look, scissors before Hornet Man had them in Mega Man 9, though those are probably supposed to be shears, yeah? Speaking of hornets or wasps or whatever, Hardman would be proud. My favorite overall enemy name has to go to this devil at the end of the intro. In Rockman and Bass for the Super Famicom, it was a gooey green, but here, the gray devil. Now, okay, that's clever. I dig it, but holy cow, that pose after defeating it, yikes dude. I guess that's what happens when Dangan's Dong is done with you. Challenger from the Future cherry picks bits and pieces from the 16-bit alternative. The way it presents the Robot Masters in this branching skill tree-like fashion is borrowed, yet the story, visuals, and enemy designs are entirely unique. Akari Keita, Mayoshi Mizuta, and Toshihiko Horiyami's spectacular Super Famicom soundtrack has been remixed. It's a bit bleep bloopy, but it's pretty hard to complain. We'll dive deeper into the original's music when I cover the entire series in an upcoming rank and review video, but let's just say that one had remarkable compositions. They are among my favorites on the Nintendo kit. They're serviceable here on the Wonderswan, but I'd be lying if I didn't admit to missing that silky smooth 16-bit sound. Everything here from top to bottom is serviceable. Good, occasionally great. I enjoyed my time with this thing, but I don't think I'll ever play it again. I'm legitimately impressed with the brand new assets, even if they visually didn't appeal to me personally. I also think this is a successful side story overall. It definitely lacks that Capcom charm. I mean, the Game Boy titles weren't developed in-house either, but they still managed to feel and look like bite-sized Mega Man adventures. Clearly, the people behind this cared about releasing a solid product. Ancillary characters such as Tango the Cat and Reggae the Stork make appearances. How deeper of a cut can you get than Wily's awkward-looking avian creation? It first appeared in a Japanese exclusive on the Famicom called Wily and Light No Rock Board. That's Paradise. Oh no, piss off, Carby. I clearly said that's Paradise, not Trapped in Paradise.
Yeah, nothing's changed, hey, Dad.
What were you thinking with that voice?
Oh, I don't.
In Mega Man 7, this feathered foe pops up when an incorrect password is inputted. If base is unlocked and chosen in the 10th Classic Series entry, this cackling wise-ass appears in the shop, as each playable character has their own unique peddler. Rockman and Forte Challenger from the future has a few interesting tricks up its portable sleeve. If you have the means, check it out. Just expect to jump through a few hoops if you're looking for a translation. Next time on this channel, a Mega Man fan game. Let's see if that makes a difference. So stay tuned there.
Hey, Alvin, I never seen stalactites in a car before.
Oh, I don't.
Shut up.